Hello everybody and welcome back to Austin, Texas. You've reached the Max Convexity channel. My name's Max, my dog's name is Jax, and I have another dog, or my friend's dog is back there too. You might see him as well. Alright, I have a good speech for you guys today. It's called, How Much Will My Defiance Funds Pay Next Year? And I brought receipts too, and I want to talk to the manager. All right, seriously, I designed a spreadsheet that's going to help me substantiate all the crazy stuff I've been saying about covered call funds being trash in the bull market. I wasn't just saying that for clicks. It's something I really believe. The title was a little bit clickbaity, but I sincerely don't want anyone to be surprised when and if JEPY isn't paying as much anymore. I fear there's people buying these funds on margin or with loans. I also fear people are over-allocating to these funds. By over-allocating, I mean YOLOing 100%. I think 10, maybe 20%, maybe 30%. If you need income and you're trying to retire soon, maybe. That's appropriate, maybe. But I also fear people are taking the current yield, 60, 70%, whatever it is, and extrapolating it to make it solve any financial problem they have. Just extrapolate it out 5 years, drip it at 60%, and you make a lot of money. But those people aren't taking into account tracking error, and they also are not taking into account the fact that economic conditions affect the volatility market and affect the stock market, and will therefore affect how much yield these are able to pay. The good news is they may pay more in the future. I'm not saying for sure they're going to pay less, but it's something we have to look at. So I made a study, and I based them on some assumptions, and I think my assumptions were very defensible. I'd be happy to defend them if somebody wants to leave me a comment. I'll explain how I did it. But I also believe they were fair assumptions, but fairness is subjective. So take all this with a grain of salt. None of this is financial advice. Don't get your financial advice off the internet. Go check it with the real-life financial advisor. And also remember, anything can happen. There's no reason to think the future will be exactly like the past. This is only a sample from a 5-year slice of history. Making too many assumptions can be dangerous. And also remember, this has been a pretty good 5-year period for volatility. When you're in these funds, you're in the volatility market. You're monetizing volatility. This has been good 5 years, so that's something to consider also. This study might suffer from recency bias. Okay, so what I did is I took the records from QYLD, XYLD, and RYLD. Those funds, on their website, they publish how much they were able to capture, how much premium they were able to capture every month. Now, of course, they just use at the money contracts, and the Defiance funds use out of the money contracts, and they don't pay out all the money, but the Defiance funds do pay out all the money. But I took all these factors, and I tried to factor them out and make a good comparison. Something I will say about the QYLD, XYLD, and RYLD is they don't retain 2/3 of their dividend like they should. If you saw my study from last week, that the 2/3 is kind of the magic number that you should retain if you're worried about tracking error and you want your net asset value to go straight sideways. Remember, that was taken from a study from 2006 to 2016, which was a terrible time for the stock market. So I would say that if you retain 2/3 of your dividends like you had to, and over those 10 years, and it kept your net asset value out of trouble in those 10 years, I'd say you'd be all right in the future. But like I say, past performance is no guarantee of a future performance. But that's the main thing I don't like about QYLD and XYLD and RYLD is the main thing I don't like is the moneyness, how they sell the at-the-money options. But also, they should honestly, instead of being paid 12%, they should be paying 8%, and they wouldn't have tracking error. I'm not trying to throw a wet blanket on this party. Maybe everything's going to keep going along fine. Defiance funds, maybe they're going to keep paying 50, 60, 70%. That'd be awesome. I don't believe it's realistic. An investor should consider all the outcomes. At the same time, it doesn't mean these funds suck. Don't sell them because I said to, or anyone else, said they wouldn't pay as much in the future. Sell them if they no longer fit your investment goals. If you didn't understand the risk you were getting into when you bought them, maybe talk to an advisor and get a second opinion, an advisor in real life. Charles Schwab has good advisors. Call up one of them. All right, so let's talk about what I found. So the best performing on average was the QQQYs. JEPY has been the worst performing on average. So if you look at the best year versus the worst year, QQQY is about what I would expect. 82% for a good 12-month period and 44% in a bad one. That's still not too bad. 44%, I'd take that. IWMY, we have 79% and then 34%. Same thing, that's all right. The thing that really shocked me about this study was the JEPY. You know, the highest it paid was 69%, but the lowest was 11. 11's not very much. 11's going to get people in trouble. Like I say, and I'm not promising this will happen, and I can't predict the future. I have no idea if this will happen. It's something that we need to at least consider. So as far as a time period, for the QQQYs, it was 2022. March of 22 through 23, that was a killer time for volatility. And QQQY earned 82%, unsurprisingly. I was a little surprised it wasn't during 2020 that QQQY earned more. That was there was also a lot of vol in 2020. JEPY's best 12-month period was also 2022, March of 22 through March of 23. 69%, that's pretty good. IWMY, IWMY actually was in March of 2020 through March of 2021. So that's the one that differs from the other by a little bit. So the worst of times, though, for all three funds, it was the same time period. It was 2019, which is when we had serious volatility compression. And if you look at compressed JEPY, the worst, 10% is just not a whole lot of money. And I don't want anyone to get in trouble. Look at my spreadsheet over here. Here's the JEPY projection. In July of 2019, I just projected 0.58 of a point. Heck, the QQQY captures 0.58 almost every day nowadays because volatility is so high. If you guys watch my update, if you don't, you should, where I look at the option strategy funds the Defiance company or Defiance is doing every day and see how much they made. At the end of the day, it's not uncommon for QQQY to make 0.5% in a day. But that's what I'm trying to get across to everyone. The market for volatility was so poor in 2019 that JEPY could barely earn anything. Let's go back to the slides. All right, so in IWMY's worst of times, well, yeah, they were all the same. I thought they differed. So here's the fun part. I made a prediction for next year. So, and I'm going to tell you exactly what you're going to make. The bad news is I used a random number generator to pick months out of the past. And my methodology on this one is I didn't just pick a month here and a month there because the months are related to each other. So I used a random number to correlate to a month, and then I picked that month and the month before and the month after. So I took a 3-month time period. So I actually generated I used 4 random numbers for each of these funds and generated a quarter, and I stacked them all together and added them up. On this, and so this is my prediction for next year. Don't trade on this. It's just for fun. But I have the highest yield being JEPY at 63%. Now, the random number generator happened to give JEPY March of 2020, so that had something to do with it, because that was a great month for volatility, maybe the best in the history of, the best in the recent history for sure. Anyway, IWMY had the lowest yield at 48%, and the middle of the road one was QQQY. I like QQQY the best, but I just really like tech stocks. And in my study, you can see that QQQY did the least poorly during volatility compression. But that doesn't mean that'll happen next time. The next time it may be different. So just take all this with a grain of salt. But it is fun doing this and talking about it, and it's been fun putting this presentation together. So don't time, allocate. Don't YOLO, plan and prepare. All right, and also don't forget about the merch. I have a pop-up store going during Christmas, and I'm trying to get some excitement generated for the channel, and it's been fun. So get yourself some merch if you want, and I appreciate how supportive everyone's been of this site. It's really been a great time for me to do that, and I really enjoy talking about all this stuff. You guys have a great what's left of your day, and I will talk to you tomorrow.